affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what do you do, God?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell us your full name?
Stephen William Trulup.
And Mr. Trulup, where do you work?
Trulup Service.
And can you put your mask down while you're on the stand?
Yep.
Thank you. Is there a microphone up there for you to speak in? I'll let you borrow mine, Mr. Trulup. Take it on.
Sure.
You can. Again, where do you work?
Trulup Service.
All right. And what do you do there?
I'm the owner operator. I've been a sole proprietor for the last 15 years.
Does Trulup Service Center have a camera system?
Yes, sir.
Is that camera system facing Highway 52?
Yes, sir.
Is your business in Williamsburg on I-52?
Yes, sir. It's right on 52.
Those cameras face the roadway?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody else have access to the camera system or the videos it
No,
takes?
sir. No one has access but me.
So the sole proprietor of those records?
Yes, sir.
Does the footage it generates, the system generates, have a timestamp and a date stamp on it?
Yes, sir, it does. It does. Now, it may be off an hour because I've never changed it from when I put it in. I don't change it for daylight savings time, whatever, but it's on within an hour.
All right. And has Highway Patrol ever approached you about having access to your system?
Yes, sir. Sergeant there asked me about it
And
a couple years ago.
did he ask for videos from the system?
Yeah, he just asked me, he noticed I had the cameras and wanted to know if he could look at them. And I said, sure. He told me what times he wanted. He put his flash drive in and got those, and he's got what I got.
And I'm going to approach you, which, I'm going to approach you with what you mark for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 4.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen that before?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen the contents of that disc?
Yes, sir.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the video that you gave to the Highway Patrol?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, the State seeks to move State's Exhibit 4 into evidence.
An objection.
He was asked to authenticate if he's seen the footage, but the solicitor just showed him a copy of the disc. And I don't know if he can say that it's a fair and accurate representation if he's just asked to verify the disc.
All right, that's it.
And let me rephrase it. Is this what you, the contents of this, what you gave the Highway Patrol?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Any objection?
Well, sir, I still know that verifies that that's what he actually gave. It's a copy of the disc.
It's admitted over objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions for this witness.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Trulup.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Virgil Barr. I've got a couple of questions for you. I won't hold you long. You said you've been the owner-operator for Trulup's muffler service for
Yes.
roughly about 15 years.
Yeah, we bought that building in '84. I've been there since '84, but I've been the sole proprietor for about the last 15 years.
Okay, and I would say that based on you being there for the last 15 years, you probably got some knowledge and understanding about Highway 52 and things, cars coming through that way, accidents, things like that. Have you ever, in your time operating Trulup's muffler service, have you ever seen the accidents out there, heard about any accidents out there?
Accidents do happen out there, but not right in front of where I'm at. It's usually down the road a little bit, one way or the other.
And
There's
you-
intersections both ways.
I apologize. And you would agree that that stretch of Highway 52 is a 4-lane
Yes, sir.
highway?
Yes, sir.
And you would also agree that at any point in time during the day or the night, cars are coming through there
Yes, sir.
Anywhere between 50, 60 miles an hour?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No further questions. Ms. Shrill.
No redirect, Doctor.
You step down, thank you, sir.
On the same call, Dr. Nicholas Chalice.
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise
Your
your
Honor.
hand.
All witnesses are excused once they step down.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes, ma'am.
you may know. Okay,
You ready?
yes, go ahead.
Dr. Chalice. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where do you work?
I work at the Medical University of South Carolina.
How long have you worked there?
I'm sorry, if I may, can I ask where the jury is?
Jury is behind you.
There's no audience.
Thank you. I work at the Medical University of South Carolina down in Charleston.
And how long have you worked out there?
I've been on faculty there. I'm working, this is my 14th year on faculty.
And can you tell us about what your position is?
Sure, I'm employed there as a forensic pathologist.
All right. And can you tell us a little bit about the training and experience you've had to get to become a forensic pathologist?
Sure. After completing my undergraduate degree at Butler University, I went on to medical school at the Indiana University School of Medicine. After graduating medical school in 4 years, I then moved on to residency training in general pathology at the Medical University of South Carolina. So general pathology is a subspecialty of medicine that deals with the diagnosis of disease. So a general pathologist would look at tissue that was taken out by a surgeon or biopsies, and then we would inform those folks whether there's cancer, if it's infection, we would tell them those types of things. A pathologist also oversees the laboratory, so if you have any blood work done, any cultures, a pathologist is the one overseeing all that. So after completing that 4-year general training program in pathology, I passed an examination to become nationally certified in pathology. I then went on to a 1-year fellowship training, so another year of specialized training in forensic pathology at the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office in Dallas, Texas. Forensic pathology, again, is a subspecialty of pathology that really deals with the kind of medical legal aspects of medicine, particularly performing autopsies to determine a cause and manner of death. At the completion of that year, I again passed a national examination, become board certified in forensic pathology, and then I took my current position.
Thank you, Dr. Chalice. Have you ever been qualified as an expert before?
I have probably close to 100 times in South Carolina and a couple times in Texas and North Carolina.
In what?
I was qualified as an expert witness for the practice of forensic pathology.
All right, at this time, the state offers Dr. Chalice as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
No objection, Your Honor.
You're still qualified.
Dr. Chalice, tell me, did you perform an autopsy on Barbara Woods?
Yes, I did. It looks like it was October 4th of 2018.
And can you tell us, generally, do you observe evidence of injury when you perform an autopsy?
Yes, we do.
Did you observe any evidence of injury on Miss Woods when you examined her?
I did.
Can you walk us through what you observed?
Sure. So as part of the autopsy examination, the first thing we'll do when we receive a body, we'll photograph the body as we receive it. We then will remove any clothing, any medical devices, that sort of thing, clean the body up, and examine it from head to toe. That's what we call our external examination. So we're looking for, height, weight, eye color, hair color, so identifying features, but then also evidence of natural disease or injury. In this case, on the outside of the body, the main findings indicating injury were several abrasions or scrapes that were kind of scattered on the body, including the right side of the face, the back, and also the arms and legs. Excuse me. In addition to that, externally, we could see that she had several lacerations or tears of her mouth and her tongue. And then her foot had an avulsion. So an avulsion essentially is where the muscle is being torn away from the bones. Her right foot was narrowly transected or amputated. After we then complete the external exam, we then move to the internal exam, and we make surgical type incisions of the internal organs to, again, look for natural disease or trauma. And again, she did have severe internal injuries, including bleeding around the brain and around the base of the brain. She also had multiple fractures of her ribs and her chest, so seven ribs on her right side and 4 ribs on her left side were fractured. She also had tears of her, her left lung and her liver, had lacerations or tears. She also had contusions or bruises of her intestines and her lungs as well, and then had collections of blood that had built up around her lungs and within her abdomen.
And Dr. Tallis, I've offered you as an expert, can you say within a reasonable degree of medical certainty that these injuries are what caused her death?
Yes, I can.
And that's your opinion?
Yes.
All right, Dr. Tallis, can you say with a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these injuries are consistent with being struck by an automobile?
Yes, they are.
And again, would that be your opinion about what happened in Ms. Woods?
Yes.
I don't have a question.
Cross-examination. Ms. Ward? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Is it Dr. Vitalis?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir. Just want to make sure I pronounced it correctly. My name is Virgil Barr, doctor. I just got some questions for you. Along the same lines from the solicitor on your report. Now, you said you've been with MUSC for about 14 years in your current role, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in regards to your employment, essentially what you do is the body comes in and you review it, you go through, you make your findings. Is that pretty much, I'm summarizing, that's pretty much correct?
As far as my part of the job that deals with the autopsy performance.
Okay. And so when you're doing the autopsy, you're trying to determine the cause of death, and you're also looking at internal, external, everything inside the body and outside the body. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, your report was done on October 4th, I see it around 9 a.m. So that's roughly the very next day. Would that be correct?
That is when the autopsy examination was performed.
Okay. First part of your report that I would like to talk about, and please excuse me, doctor, I am horrible at pronouncing things, but I believe it's gastrointestinal system. I believe it's on page 3 or 4 of your report.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the things I saw here is in that second subheading where it says, I believe it's pronounced general urinary system, it says the bladder was empty. Is that common in these type of incidents or cases?
I'd say how much urine the bladder has varies from case to case.
Okay, but in this case, it was completely empty when you examined the body.
Yes, it was. And the other thing that it would be maybe more expected in this case, because she did, as part of the medical treatment that she had on her body, she had a Foley catheter, so a urinary catheter that had gone into the bladder.
Okay.
So it's very common for that to drain the urine out.
Okay, so that could explain that. I want to take a look at your case summary, which is on page 4. And I was curious about some of the other findings. I'm looking really at paragraph 2, where it talks about samples of cardiac blood.
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
I haven't heard the testimony, I haven't seen the report, I don't know whether it's relevant or not. What was the question again?
At this point, Your Honor, I was just bringing the doctor to speed on page 4.
He has his report, what was the question?
I hadn't gotten haven't answered the question yet, Your Honor.
All right, let me hear the question.
As part of the autopsy process, do you do testing of the blood?
Yes, as part of most all autopsies, we will submit samples of blood or other fluids to a laboratory for toxicology testing.
Is that part of the normal process?
For the vast majority of our cases. Occasionally, if somebody's been hospitalized for an extended period of time, or if it's a skeletonized remains, we would not do that, but most other cases we do.
It would be fair to say these tests, they're sent off, it's important to conduct it, otherwise you wouldn't do it, would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in this case, you did test the blood of Ms. Woods, is that also correct?
We did.
Okay, now on this report, it says positive for cocaine metabolite.
Objection, irrelevant.
Response?
Well, Your Honor, this is in the doctor's medical report that he's been asked to come here and testify to. I think it's a little disingenuous for the state to want to have the doctor testify to the report, but they can choose what he can testify to in the report. And the report was an autopsy of the Ms. Woods, and I think that's highly relevant.
Mr. Solicitor?
Your Honor, the doctors testified about the cause of death. He's trying to get into stuff that is inappropriate under the rules of evidence as far as unduly prejudicial and relevancy.
Overrule the objection.
Doctor?
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, I'll repeat it. In the testing, it says results positive for cocaine metabolite. What is cocaine metabolite for those who did not go to Buckle in IU medical school?
Sure. So cocaine is an illicit drug that people are probably familiar with. A metabolite is going to be a breakdown product of that drug. So she did not have the parent drug of cocaine in her system, but did have this breakdown product, which would say that she was not under the influence of the active cocaine when she died, but would have been hours before or possibly the day before.
And for my research, doctor, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is it normal that if it's positive for that cocaine metabolite, I believe benzoylecgonide, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Close enough.
I found that is that correct? It indicates usage within the last 4 days.
In general, again, without a reference in front of me, but yeah, hours to days.
Okay. And to the best, and I know that you're not a law enforcement officer, but to the best of your knowledge, a doctor. Cocaine.
Correct.
Okay. It also says here in the report that ethanol. Is ethanol, would that be considered to be alcohol?
Yeah, that would be your typical drinking alcohol.
Okay, so at the time you did the blood testing, you found the cocaine metabolite and ethanol, which is alcohol, in the system of Ms. Woods. Would that be correct?
Correct. She had a low concentration of ethanol.
Okay. Now, doctor also saw another substance in the report. It states coca ethylene. That's a byproduct, correct, of when there's cocaine and alcohol. Would I be correct in that?
Correct. You would only get that in your system if you are using cocaine and drinking, not necessarily at the exact same moment, but during the same time period.
It would be correct, and based on the research that I found, is that that's something that your body produces when you have cocaine and alcohol. It produces that as a byproduct. Is that correct?
Correct. When both substances are in your system at the same time, you can produce the cocaine.
Okay. Now going even forward, this is all of this information is in the case summary of your report. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if it wasn't important, you wouldn't put it in your case summary. I'm assuming that.
It's just a formatting issue. We changed our lab interface this summer, and now we have a separate section that toxicology lives in, so it's just the way we formatted our reports at the time.
Okay. Now, doctor, I also saw there was a substance, also in your case summary, that it's, I want to make sure I get this pronounced correctly, ketamine. Now, what is ketamine?
Ketamine is a drug or a pharmaceutical agent that can be used for pain control, can be used for anesthesia. It can be used illicitly as well, but more commonly as a medication.
Now, I want to go back to that. So it can be used illicitly. Some of those illicit uses, Is it known sometimes as a club drug, like ecstasy? Would that be something in that ballpark?
It is a psychoactive substance that could be roughly categorized with that.
And so as a psychoactive drug, it could disrupt your auditory senses, consciousness, pain, any of that stuff, is that correct?
It could.
And is that a controlled substance, doctor?
It is.
So you would only have to be able to use that substance legally if you were given a prescription for it, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and based on it being in your case summary, that was also in the blood system. Is that also correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I have it correct, yeah, have everything. Also, there was I believe it's, and I don't want to butcher this, but there was also diphenhydramine. Is that the substance that are in sleeping pills?
Not necessarily. Diphenhydramine
Yes.
would be Benadryl. So it's an antihistamine. If you have an allergic reaction or allergies, you take Benadryl, which is diphenhydramine.
Okay, and all of these substances were in Ms. Wood's system when you did the autopsy.
Correct.
Now, I'm not a doctor, you were a doctor. That seems like a lot of substances to be in someone's bloodstream. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd say in our line of work, it's not an uncommon number of things in people's systems between medications, and again, we do see folks with illicit drugs in their system as well. So I guess I can't compare it to, I don't think there's an average case where we rarely see somebody who has nothing in their system. So, this is probably 5, 6, 7, 8 things. It's
Now,
roughly normal.
I want to ask this question. Now, doctor, there's testing in the bloodstream, and there's also hair follicle tests that you can do as far as testing for drugs in someone's system. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, from what I understand, if you do a hair follicle testing, sometimes that can yield results where someone may have not used the substance in the near future, but it could have been in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in our practice of autopsy to determine the cause of death, we don't really get into the hair. Hair follicles, you can look out, depending on the substance, weeks or even months ago, you can see what was affecting them. Again, as part of the autopsy, we care what was affecting them at the time they died.
Okay,
so it's not routinely performed.
And thank you for that answer. So that basically means that if this stuff is in the system of a person, it affected them in or around the time that they died. Would that be an incorrect assessment?
The active drugs, so the ethanol, the diphenhydramine, again, those are active drugs. We talked about the cocaine metabolite and the byproduct, the cocaethylene, those are inactive, so those would not have been acting on her at the time she died.
Okay, but they were in her system at that time.
Correct.
Okay. David, of course, indulge in one moment. Thank you, Doctor. I have no further questions.
And you read that one.
Yes,
Dr. Dallas, defense has asked you a couple questions about the victim toxicology report. Just want to reiterate some points. You say that she had cocaine metabolite present in her system.
Yes.
And that would mean that she's not actively under the influence of it because it was already metabolized by her system.
Correct. She was not under the influence of cocaine at the time she died.
All right. And we also talked about the fact that she had ketamine in her system. You mentioned it as anesthesia. Is it uncommon for someone with injuries like her to not receive, or let me rephrase that. Is it common for people with injuries like hers to receive anesthesia at the hospital?
It is.
No further questions.
Anything further? Thank you, sir. You may step down and you're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
like that way.
That way, either one. Or that way. Next witness.
Your Honor, we call Trooper Luther.
So that's kind of about
tell us your full name for the record?
Tyler Jennings Luther.
And Officer Luther, where do you work?
I'm employed with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. I've been employed here since January of 2000. My most current role since 2011 has been with MATE, which is the Multidisciplinary Accident Investigation Team. I'm stationed out of Florence, which covers the PD region, 8 counties.
And did you participate in the investigation of this case?
I did, yes, sir.
And tell me, did Highway Patrol, do you have knowledge of Highway Patrol putting out a billboard asking for tips in this case?
Yes, sir. You want me to do my background?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, tell us your background.
Just a little bit about myself. I've got a diploma in industrial electricity from Florence Darlington Technical College. Also
I
have
think you need to speak louder, even though you're speaking in the mic.
Also have an associate's in electromechanical engineering from Florence Darlington Technical College. Also have a bachelor's of science in political science from Francis Marion University. I've got over 1,000 hours of collision reconstruction, advanced training, investigated somewhere around 2,000 collisions in my time on the Highway Patrol. Somewhere over 900 of those were complex investigations dealing with MATE cases. Also accredited through the accreditation act of ACTAR, which is the national accreditation for collision reconstructions. And like I said, I have been with PD MATE now since 2011.
If you testified as an expert in the field of accident reconstruction?
Yes, sir, I have.
Did you perform an accident reconstruction in this case?
Yes, sir, we did.
Your Honor, this time we offer Officer Luther as an expert in accident reconstruction.
No objection, Your Honor.
He is so qualified.
And Officer Luther, before I get to the reconstruction, I want to talk to you about efforts that you made to find a suspect in this case. Did Highway Patrol put out a billboard trying to collect tips or leads?
Yes, sir. Anytime we have a hit and run collision where somebody died, we'll go around. We'll actually do a billboard. Normally, we'll put it as close to the scene as possible, and put any information. You can buy star HP to give up any information that you may have on a collision. We also do a hit and run flyer that we disseminate through the CROs, community relations officers. It's given to the TV stations. It's also handed to the road troopers, and they'll actually hand it out at the convenience stores and try to get any tips related to the collision that we're investigating.
All right. Did you receive a tip in this case that led to Mr. Richardson being a suspect?
Yes, sir, we did.
Did you have an opportunity to interview Mr. Richardson?
Yes, sir. We actually received a tip on January 31st of 2019 about Mr. Richardson, and I was able to interview Mr. Richardson on February 7th of 2019.
Is Mr. Richardson in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir, he is.
Can you point him out for me?
Yes, sir, he's at the defense table.
Was that audio or that interview audio recorded?
Yes, sir. Anytime we do an interview, we'll digitally record it. Yes, sir.
All right. And before that interview, did you inform the defendant of his rights?
Yes, sir, I did, verbally and through a signed Miranda waiver.
All right. And can you walk us through what rights you go through with a person who Mirandized them?
Yes, sir. Anytime we talk to someone, we're reading their rights. And this is actually read to Mr. Richardson. I have the right to remain silent. That means I do not have to say anything or answer any questions. Anything I say can be used against me in the court of law. I have the right to talk to a lawyer and have a lawyer here with me now to advise me and help me before and during any questioning. If I want to have a lawyer with me before and during any